Liam Hayes.
Dublin, let's say, they kept plugging away.
Rock. Point number 4 for the afternoon. All of them from place balls.
In the first match, Dublin had some players not playing so well, a lot of players doing a lot more than others. As a team, Dublin played very, very well that day.
Looking for some support, getting it from Eamon Heary, a wing back who likes to go forward and he's stuck it over the bar, has he? Yes, off the crossbar and over. Tommy Carr took a good position, but was fouled by PJ Gillick after he played the ball away, and Ferguson is wondering why the free has been awarded. And he's put it over the bar for the equaliser. Barney Rock kicks another beauty. Well, we were saying it's looking ominous for Meath.
To me, it was a very free-ridden match. A lot of the discipline went out of it. Nothing nasty, but there was an awful lot of, and some of the tackling in it was ferocious.
There was an awful lot of frees, but that was, at the time in Gaelic football, that was nearly the norm. There was particularly the games among ourselves and Meath at that time. There was a great deal of physicality in the games. There was an awful lot of respect among the players, and the respect extended to that after games nobody would whinge in the papers about any moment that happened on the field. If you did, it was perceived as a sign of weakness, and you never want to display any weakness to the opposition, particularly to Meath.
And there was an awful lot of debate as well, I remember, about the not so much the quality of the football, but the fact that they were very dirty games. And I think, now people give out about the game being too physical, but my God, there were fellas taking lumps out of each other.
Keith Barr reaches high, but it's Jack Sheedy who takes up a great position just behind him. Was he fouled by Martin O'Connell? And right now there's a Dublin forward down injured, Vinny Murphy. Robbie O'Malley, I think, going in there to say to Vinny, get on the feet fairly quickly, and this is not rather nice at all.
Yeah, we're seeing Mick Lyons here giving the short arm back to Vinny Murphy. Quite rightly, I think this has to be penalised.
And Lyons has been sent off.
At the end of the game, when Mick Lyons got sent off, which was very harsh, I thought. I didn't think he deserved to get sent off for what he did. And as he's walking off the field, you actually see Paul Boylan, commiserating with him, and there was a great deal of respect with one another. But after that, we twice got the ball in. Kieran Duff twice robbed the ball in midfield, and Vinny and Paul Clark, completely on their own, clashed, and the ball went astray. I think Martin O'Connell, or one of their defenders, kicked the ball back out. Kieran Duff got her again, gave a high kick in. Vinny Murphy got behind Martin O'Connell.
Well, I was aware that it was close enough to the end of the match. I wouldn't have been aware that it was going to be the last kick of the game, and I think it was the frustration from the first game and the second game sort of boiled up when I got the chance. There was a goal on, and it was like I wanted to just basically stick one into the management more so than into the Meath net.
Murphy has got it! Oh, it's stopped by McQuillan! Murphy again, a second chance! The defence having to be disciplined, not concede anything. It spills loose. And it's come out to Colin Coyle again. He's been fouled.
We know now that if Vinny had elected to take the point, that the game would have been over and we would have won and we'd have gone through. But that's what happens at football. You roll the dice, take your chances.
I've sort of had nightmares and relived that incident over and over again. It's one of those things. If I got the same chance now, I think I'd do the same thing. It was a natural reaction. The feelings I was having inside, that when I got the ball, I was going to put it in the back of the net and win the game.
And that, I think, is all there is. Tommy Howard signals the end of the 70 minutes, and just as in 1983, it has to go to a half an hour's extra time.
This was the first time we had the extra time, and Mick Lyons had been sent off a couple of minutes before the end of the match.
Meath still with 14 men, Colin O'Rourke and Sean Boylan still conducting a team talk out in the centre of the field.
Because extra time was constituted as a new game, Tommy Howard felt you couldn't bring in a sub. I asked Liam Creevan and Flynn Giddy, our chairman and secretary, to go across just to get. I felt that we could. They felt the same. I said, look, make sure go across, to under the Hogan stand to the referee's room and to the powers that be. And yes, you could bring somebody. We brought back in Liam Harnan, and it meant that we had the 15 aside then for the extra time, and again the tension in those, it was quite remarkable. I think all the scores were in the first half.
Kieran Duff trying to engineer the first score in injury time, or in extra time I should say. Meath with the advantage of the wind. Hit inside to David Beggy, trying to go round, and it's hit inside brilliantly by David Beggy. An instant response by Meath. The first goal of the match, and David Beggy is the goal scorer. He got by Kieran Walsh and hit it in beautifully into the top corner. John O'Leary powerless to deny him. So Meath ahead by 2 points.
Jack Sheedy was quite, in terms of age, he was quite an older player at the time when he made his breakthrough.
Jack was nearly like the new Brian Mullins. He was a phenomenal player. Could win it, could score with it, could lay it off. Got some wonderful scores, even in the Leicester final, sort of in '94. But in that series, he played like a veteran. You'd swear he was there, and probably troubled Liam Harn more than anybody ever did. But he was just a fantastic player.
Barney kicked a free from out under the Cusick stand.
Wind into Barney's face.
And the ball hung up in the air, and I just got a fist to it and got into the back of the net.
Liam Harnan in there, it's a goal! It's a goal, and Jack Sheedy is the goal scorer from Barney Rock's free kick.
It was great, I was thrilled, because I'd scored probably a few goals during the course of the league, and that was my second championship game, so it was the first goal that I'd scored. So I felt, brilliant.
129 minutes of a match so far. On my watch, the referee blew up about 20 seconds early, but who cares? There was no score in the second period of extra time. There was a lot of drama. It now finishes with a finishing score of Meath 111, Dublin 111. They meet again. Will it be third time lucky?
I think out of the 4 games, we would have said that we should have won 3 of them. And certainly that was one that we would have said, coming out of that game, we're a little bit fortunate today. We didn't play as well as we did the first day. We didn't dominate Meath as well as we did the first day. And we were happy enough to end up in the change room with the draw at that stage. There was a lot going on with soccer. There was a big revolution for Ireland, with Jack Charlton and that. So soccer was a real buzz around the country.
The Leinster Championship in particular, but maybe all GA games, were overshadowed by Italia 90. The 2 Leinster hurling semi-finals were played mid-June. It had become a very attractive date on the calendar. You could be expecting 40 to 45,000. But in 1990, it clashed with Ireland-Egypt in the Italia 90 on a Sunday afternoon, and we had less than 10,000 people at the game, maybe an awful lot less at our games. 2 weeks later, Meath had qualified to play Laois in a Leinster football semi-final. On the day after, Scalacci's goal sent Ireland packing, but Jack and the boys arrived at the airport on the Sunday afternoon. 250,000 people turned up to see them. Less than 10,000 again turned up. The end result was that we had taken a financial hit, and the only thing that saved us was the Dublin Meath Leinster football final. Now here they were drawn in a preliminary round game. I said to the chairman, well, in the context that we had just bought new buildings for Leinster Council that summer 1990, I said, I think we may talk to an auctioneer. We won't be able to sustain this building here.
You got to remember, things weren't great in the country at the time. I remember in '91 as a young married guy paying 16-70% and an interest rate in a mortgage. Italia 1990 had absolutely, totally brainwashed the country. The GAA people were actually, some of those were being sort of won over with the soccer.
One of the players on the team, Kieran Walsh, was a pal of mine when I was growing up. And I do remember thinking, Jesus, like the lads would be really proud, Wally's there, for these games and all that. And then you think, well, the lads aren't here. I mean, the lads were in London, they were in Australia, a lot of them, a couple of them were in America. And you kind of forget that, when people say 50,000 people, maybe that's not a big crowd, but I mean the amount of young people that just weren't around.
I do believe it's only years afterwards it played a very important role, not just for the GAA, but the feel-good factor that it gave people, particularly in Meath, Dublin and all over the country.
I think it was where young people started going to games and the females of the country. Before that, it was the man of the house went to the matches and maybe brought along one or two young fellas. But families started going, and that trend has continued ever since.
Here we were 3 Sundays later, still playing, and we had entered, looking back on it now, because at the time you just get on with it and it's another game of football, but looking back, a kind of a twilight zone of will we ever come out of this type of thing. You nearly couldn't see yourself either winning or losing, and it just seemed to be starting to go on forever. Same faces, same half-time talks, the same post-mortems at the end of the games. You'd have a pep talk before half-time, before extra time, in the middle of extra time. So it just seemed to go on and on.
Yeah, leading up to the match, it was quite intense team meetings in that there was a fair air of responsibility on everybody, yet not everybody's game was intact. We would have very frank discussions, particularly after the second match. We'd have a very, very frank team meeting. Fellas would have said openly to each other what they thought. We believed that we were struggling more than we should have been struggling for a team that was together for as long as they were.
We were very conscious at this stage that the stakes were getting higher and higher, and that the whole run of games had taken the imagination of the public, everybody, from every sporting facet. Even to the degree, I remember being on a very strict army course at the time. It was a career course, and nobody ever got off time or leave or anything like that. And I was called to the office and I was told whatever time I wanted because the game was coming up. So that even little things like that, where norms were changed to cater for the game, even down to your own personal life.
Well, because I'm a postman and I meet hundreds of people every day, so everyone had a chance to make a comment. So my post route used to take much longer than normal, but it was all in support and wishing me the best, and but it was on everyone's mind because there was nothing else talked about at the time for the 4 or 5 weeks.
It was a great occasion, and you could see as the weeks went on that the crowd were becoming part of it more and more, and people were saying they were at the first game, they had to be there for the second one, and so on.
When the first replay came along, we had tickets, but then for the third and fourth games there was ticket chaos. Now, there were only 4 of us working in the office in Portlaoise, so you can imagine trying to get out 60,000 tickets.
Plus there was a new element coming around it of corporate involvement, and there was functions being organised on the evenings before matches and on the morning of the matches, so there was corporate and political hype around it as well.
A friend of Brian Mullins rang me for his first game and he said, I want to bring 40 clients to the game, would you arrange 40 decent tickets? And I said, God, I'm in the business of selling tickets, no problem. And he brought the 40 of them to dinner and to the match. Of course, he had to come back the second day. He says, I don't want to spend this money, but they're insistent. And that went on for the 4 games, and I can tell you by the time of the 4th game it was getting tougher on me to get 40 decent Hogan stand tickets for this guy, but we did it.
The sponsorship thing had just begun to be a live issue with the GA, and it had coincided with these games and the whole euphoria around these games. And we had found it at the time just a little bit of a distraction or an intrusion, or maybe a little bit of commercial opportunism.
I remember for the first of the 4 games, Dublin had no logo on their shirt. No, they had no sponsor. Meath had a group called O'Reilly Transport. For the second game, Dublin negotiated a deal and they had a very small crest from Arnott's, and Meath were still with O'Reilly Transport. But for the 3rd game, the PR people obviously had been working. Dublin had Arnott's across their chest, and Meath had a new sponsor. I stayed with them until 2006, I think. Keypack.
We would have felt, that at that time, it's not sponsorship we should be thinking about, or jerseys, or because I think we had to take our clothes off at the launch and put on a jersey and all that type of stuff. and it was new to everybody at the time. So I think it was more a case of, what on earth are we doing here at this time? We've more important things to be thinking about.
You got into the third match, and it was a wet day, it was a bit of a miserable day, and so on. It was a misty day, and the fellas were slipping, and they were all over the place. And you felt at one stage during that, well, now, listen, whoever gets that bit of a lead or whatever it is, they're not going to lose it. But it didn't work out that way. Do you know what I mean? And again, it went down to the wires. It went down to the wire as well.
The referee, Tommy Carr, once again. Well, so far this month, the games between the counties have lacked a certain amount of style, but that was substituted by two rugged and vigorous contests, and the expectation of another one this afternoon with Keith Barr going in there. The challenge with David Beggy spills out here as far as Tommy Carr. So in the opening minute of this match, Vinny Murphy taking up position away on the left-hand side. Mick Lyons went out there to follow him.
Going into the third match, the thought was that we were always going to win it. It was never crossed our minds that we weren't going to lose it. And in fact, we thought we were getting a better grip of it, certainly from a management and a playing point of view. We felt we were getting a better grip on it, and that the team were playing a little bit better with every match.
Approaching the 5th minute of the match. Dropped forward towards Vinny Murphy. Mick Lyons reaching out for it, but drops down nicely for Niall Guyden. And Declan Sheehan's inside there. A scoring chance here. Comes out in the end to Paul Clark and put over the bar.
Dublin were on fire. A lot of the younger players, they had a bounce in their step. They had pace in a few areas that we were struggling in, and we were well aware of that.
Murphy now, getting it back as far as Niall Guyden, who managed 4 points in the league last March against the same opposition, and that's his first this afternoon. That greasy ball, hard to handle, and it's Keith Barr who comes in with a late foul.
Heat had a late tackle on Cullen O'Rourke, and Tommy is looking around all the Dublin full-back line and the half-back line trying to locate Keith Barr. He knows it's number 6 who's committed the foul, and he doesn't know what Keith Barr looks like. This is the third game. One of the principal players in the game is Keith Barr, and on this unfolding drama, and here's Tommy looking around, doesn't know what Keith Barr looks like.
And he was literally running up to fellas and turning them round to look at their number. And you did kind of think, he's been living with these people for about 4 hours now, and he doesn't know who's who, which just seemed extraordinary. And you kind of think, what's he been looking at all this time?
It got to the stage that I knew all the players nearly personally, so it wasn't a question of what number or anything. I just had to find him.
Keith Barr is way down near the goal line.
Keith, he sort of disappeared into the crowd, as you might say, but I was determined to have a word with him, and I found him on the goal line.
The final piece of action from a useful first 35 minutes, but it's still tight and tense at half-time. Dublin going in, the leaders, by 5 points to 4.
For 15-20 minutes, we were absolutely blown away by Dublin's pace.
Fed out by Boylan, kicked by Jack Sheedy and put over the crossbar.
They were running at us, particularly at our defence. They were causing a lot of trouble getting frees. And with about 13, 14, 15 minutes to go, it did look ominous. We looked in serious trouble.
The shadow of the clock, the Hogan stand here lengthening. A light shadow at that. Sheedy, a very businesslike Dublin team, engineer a fine score. It seems like it's panic stations for Meath.
I remember really well, I knew John O'Leary quite well at the time. The one thing that we would have spoke about in some of the team meetings over the years was maybe John's sort of his liking for coming off his line would have maybe we would have got a few scores from it.
And the third match between Meath and Dublin the league champions, leading by 5 points. Meath trying to come back.